The morning had started like any other for the driver. He was a man who spent most of his life on the road, moving from one town to another, helping people reach their destinations safely. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a soft golden light over the streets. Cars rolled by, people hurried to work or school, and the world seemed calm and ordinary. He enjoyed these early hours when the roads were quieter, and he could listen to his favorite music on the radio or just think. He drove a sturdy, old vehicle that had seen many miles but had never let him down. Inside, it smelled faintly of coffee and leather. He took pride in keeping it clean and tidy. Every passenger who stepped into his car would notice it instantly. Everything in its place and the air somehow always welcoming. He believed that comfort mattered, especially when people were stressed or worried about getting somewhere on time. As he drove through the outskirts of town, he noticed the sky beginning to change. Thin gray clouds started gathering on the horizon, moving quickly as if they had a purpose. A small breeze brushed against the trees lining the road, and it carried a faint, unusual smell, like rain mixed with dust. He frowned slightly. Weather patterns could be unpredictable, especially this time of year, and his instincts told him to pay attention. Turning on the radio, he listened to the morning news. A meteorologist was warning about a possible tornado forming not far from the town. People were advised to take precautions, and emergency services were on high alert. He nodded to himself, feeling the weight of responsibility. Being a driver was not just about moving people from one place to another. It was also about knowing when danger was near and making choices that could protect lives. He continued driving, keeping an eye on the sky and the roads. Most people were going about their day as usual, unaware of the storm approaching. But as he rounded a bend, he noticed something unusual. On the side of the road, near a muddy field, a small family was struggling with their car. It had gotten stuck, and their efforts to push it free had failed. Without a second thought, he slowed his vehicle and pulled over. The family looked relieved when they saw him stop. The father waved, and the mother quickly moved to get the children out of the car. The driver got out and approached them, careful not to step too close to the soft, wet mud. "Looks like you could use some help," he said kindly, his voice calm despite the growing wind around them. The father nodded, sweat and frustration on his face. "We've been trying to get it out for half an hour. The kids are scared and we don't know what to do." He smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry. I'll get you out of here. Let's move fast. The weather isn't waiting for us." The children clung to their parents, looking up at the driver with wide eyes. One of the kids whispered something to their mother, and she smiled nervously, trying to keep them calm. The driver helped guide them to his vehicle, making sure everyone was safely inside. He had done this many times before, helping stranded travelers, but there was always a certain tension that came with it. The storm was not far off, and every second counted. Once they were all inside, he started the car and carefully drove onto the road. The mud had made the edges slippery, so he moved slowly at first, making sure no one lost balance. The wind had grown stronger, pushing against the car and making the journey even more challenging. The family clutched each other, their faces pale, but they trusted him completely. As they drove, he tried to make small talk, keeping the atmosphere light. "I know it's scary out there," he said, "but we're going to find a safe place. I've been through storms before, and I know a few spots where we'll be out of the worst of it." The father nodded, grateful for his calm confidence. The mother squeezed her child's hand and whispered reassurances that he would hear too. The driver glanced at them through the rearview mirror, noting the fear in their eyes. He had a strong sense that people remembered how others acted during moments of danger. Calmness, courage, and kindness could make a world of difference. As they moved farther along the road, the sky darkened quickly. Thick, rolling clouds blocked the sunlight, casting the landscape into an eerie gray shadow. The wind blew harder, rattling the windows and causing loose branches to fall onto the road. The driver had to swerve carefully around debris, focusing on each turn, each dip, and each obstacle. He felt the tension building in his chest, but he didn't show it. His passengers needed him to be steady, and he refused to let fear guide him. At one point, he noticed a large tree branch had fallen across the road ahead. He slowed down, assessing the best way to get past it. The father peeked nervously from the window. "Do you think we can get around it?" he asked. The driver nodded. "Yes, just follow my lead. Stay calm, and we'll move carefully." He guided the car around the branch, wheels slipping slightly on the wet ground, and breathed a small sigh of relief when they passed safely. The family exhaled together, grateful for his skill and calmness. Moments like these were small victories, but they mattered immensely. Each successful maneuver brought them closer to safety. As the journey continued, the storm grew louder. Thunder rolled in the distance, and flashes of lightning lit up the sky. Rain began to pour, drumming against the roof of the car like tiny hammers. Visibility dropped, and the driver turned on the windshield wipers at full speed. He spoke softly to the passengers, keeping them informed. "We're doing well. Just a little farther and we'll find shelter. Stay close and don't panic." Despite the fear, there was a sense of trust in the car. The passengers relied entirely on him, and he felt a deep responsibility to protect them. His heart beat steadily, not from panic, but from focus. Every decision mattered. Every turn, every choice of route could make the difference between safety and disaster. Hours, or maybe just minutes. Time felt strange in the storm, passed, and the car continued to move steadily forward. The passengers shared small stories, trying to distract themselves from the chaos outside. The mother spoke softly to the children, telling them about times when she had been brave, and the father cracked small jokes to lighten the mood. The driver listened quietly, offering encouragement when he could, always aware of the danger just outside the windows. Finally, in the distance, he saw a faint light flickering. It was a small building, likely designed to withstand storms. Relief washed over him. "We're almost there," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Just a little farther and we'll be safe." The family's expressions changed instantly. Hope replaced fear, and they leaned forward, eager to reach shelter. The driver navigated carefully, dodging puddles and fallen branches, and finally guided the car to a small parking area near the building. He helped the passengers out, making sure the children stepped carefully and the adults maintained their balance. They had made it. For a brief moment, the storm outside continued to rage, but inside this small circle of safety, there was calm. The family hugged each other tightly, tears of relief streaming down their faces. The driver smiled, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had done what he had set out to do, protect those who depended on him, and yet he had no idea who these passengers truly were. One of them, calm and composed even in the chaos, had carried themselves with a quiet authority that hinted at something more. But the driver didn't notice. He had been focused entirely on keeping them safe. In the moment, it didn't matter who they were. It only mattered that they survived. As they caught their breath and began to recover from the storm, the driver looked at the sky, still dark and threatening, and thought about the fragility of life. A simple decision, stopping to help, taking a slightly longer route, staying calm, could change everything. Today, those choices had saved lives. He didn't know it yet, but the story of this storm and the people he had saved was far from over. What had started as an ordinary day on the road had become extraordinary. And somewhere in that group, one person carried a title and a position that would change the way the world remembered this moment. But for the driver, the moment itself, helping strangers, facing danger, protecting life, was all that mattered. And in that quiet, tense, and unforgettable morning, he understood something simple yet profound. Courage wasn't about recognition or fame. It was about doing what was right when it mattered most. The storm had not yet passed. Outside, the wind still howled, tearing through trees and tossing debris across the road. The rain had turned heavier, slamming against the windows of the driver's vehicle with such force that it sounded like small stones hitting metal. Inside the car, however, there was a fragile sense of safety, like a bubble separating them from the chaos beyond. The driver had parked near a small shelter, but he knew the weather could worsen at any moment, and staying prepared was crucial. He glanced around at the family he had rescued. The father sat quietly, holding the youngest child on his lap, rocking them gently to calm their tears. The mother kept a hand on the shoulder of the older child, speaking in soft tones to prevent panic. Even in this moment of fear, there was a sense of togetherness among them. It was one of those rare moments where people realized how important it was to have someone looking out for them. The driver took a deep breath, knowing that the work was not over. He could not just sit and wait for the storm to end. He had to ensure that everyone would reach a truly safe location, away from the path of the tornado that had already caused damage in nearby towns. He turned on the car lights and windshield wipers, scanning the road ahead for any obstacles that might have fallen during the past few minutes. The rain made everything slippery, and he knew that a single mistake could be dangerous. "Are you sure we can get out of here safely?" the father asked, his voice low and tense. The driver gave a calm nod. "Yes, it won't be easy, but I know the roads well. We'll find a safer place. Just stay close and trust me." The passengers nodded, visibly trying to steady themselves. They could feel his confidence, and it gave them hope. Sometimes hope was enough to keep fear from overwhelming a person, even in the most dangerous situations. As he started moving again, the driver noticed the wind picking up even more. The car swayed slightly as gusts hit from the side, but he gripped the wheel tightly and focused on keeping control. The rain created small rivers on the road, and he carefully maneuvered through them, making sure not to lose traction. He glanced in the rearview mirror to check on the family. The children clung to their parents, eyes wide, but they seemed calmer than before. "Look," the mother said suddenly, pointing toward a distant field. The driver followed her gesture and saw a large tree branch blocking part of the road ahead. It had fallen just moments ago, and he knew that trying to drive over it would be dangerous. He slowed the car and evaluated the best approach. "We'll go around it," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Just watch your step when we get close." Carefully, he guided the vehicle around the branch, the tires slipping slightly on the wet earth. Everyone held their breath, and when the car cleared the obstacle safely, a small sigh of relief echoed inside. The storm outside had not let up, but inside the car they shared a tiny victory, and it reminded them that they were not helpless. The driver continued forward, navigating through the increasingly difficult terrain. Fallen signs, scattered branches, and puddles made the journey tense. He could hear the distant roar of the tornado, and the occasional flash of lightning illuminated the landscape, showing the extent of the damage it had already caused. He felt the weight of responsibility, but he did not allow it to paralyze him. His focus remained sharp, each decision precise, each turn deliberate. Inside the car, the family tried to distract themselves from the fear. The father spoke quietly about memories from better days, telling stories of small adventures that made them smile. The mother reminded the children that storms could pass and they would be safe soon. The driver listened but remained focused on the road, occasionally offering words of encouragement. After some time, they reached a small clearing. The driver spotted a more substantial structure ahead, likely a community shelter built to withstand severe weather. Relief washed over him, and he adjusted the car's speed carefully, knowing that every step still required caution. As they approached, the driver noticed the presence of other people at the shelter. A few had already taken cover, waiting out the storm, and some looked worried as they watched the trees bend and sway under the wind. The driver felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he would soon guide his passengers to a safer place. The calm passenger, who had remained quiet for most of the journey, finally spoke. Their voice was steady even in the midst of chaos. "We need to make sure everyone gets inside safely," they said, glancing at the others. There was a confidence in their tone that caught the driver's attention, though he didn't know why it felt so significant. He nodded silently. "Yes, that's the priority." Together they moved toward the shelter. The driver helped the family out of the car, carefully guiding them through the mud and debris. The children held tightly to their parents while the mother whispered words of comfort to keep their spirits up. The father followed closely, his hand steadying the children whenever the wind nearly knocked them off balance. Once inside, the group found a relatively dry corner of the shelter. Others who had already arrived looked at them with a mixture of curiosity and relief. The driver's calm demeanor and careful guidance had made a noticeable difference. People often remembered how someone acted in moments of crisis, and he had shown courage and control. The storm continued outside, but inside, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Conversations began to form, small reassurances exchanged, and the family began to feel a sense of safety. The driver remained alert, his eyes occasionally flicking to the windows to watch for any sudden change in the storm's behavior. At one point, the calm passenger approached the driver. "You handled that very well," they said sincerely. "It takes courage to act so quickly when the weather turns like that." The driver shrugged slightly. "I just did what I thought was right. People needed help and I couldn't ignore it." The passenger smiled. "That's exactly what makes someone a hero. You didn't even hesitate." The driver looked at them, noticing their composed manner and the way they seemed to assess situations calmly. There was something about their presence that felt important, though he didn't know why. He didn't ask questions. Right now, it wasn't about recognition or titles. It was about the lives he had just protected. As the storm raged on, other people in the shelter began to talk about the damage outside. Windows had been broken, fences toppled, and trees uprooted. Some shared stories of near misses, while others expressed fear for loved ones still out in the storm. The driver listened quietly, knowing that any advice he offered could help people stay safe. Time passed slowly. The rain beat against the roof and the wind shrieked through the cracks of the building. But inside there was a sense of relief and gratitude. The family who had been rescued hugged each other, grateful not only for surviving but also for having someone willing to take action when others might have hesitated. The driver felt a quiet satisfaction. He had always believed that helping others was not about fame or reward. It was about doing the right thing, especially when people had no one else to rely on. Today he had made a difference, and that knowledge brought him a sense of fulfillment that nothing else could match. As the storm slowly began to lose some of its intensity, the calm passenger spoke again, this time addressing the group. "We're lucky to have made it here safely," they said. "Let's stay here a little longer until the roads are clear." "We can't risk going out yet," the driver agreed. "Safety first." "That's all that matters." The family settled in, children still a little scared but gradually relaxing. The father gave the driver a grateful look, the kind that said more than words ever could. The mother whispered a quiet thank you, and the driver nodded, acknowledging the trust they had placed in him. And still, he didn't know the significance of the calm passenger. They remained composed, almost as if they had faced storms before, not just literal ones but the challenges of life itself. The driver had helped save lives without knowing he had also protected someone whose presence could have changed the story entirely. In the dim light of the shelter, the storm outside continued its fury, but inside there was hope. Hope in human kindness and courage and in the simple act of helping someone in need. The driver reflected quietly, understanding that moments like these defined who people were, far more than titles or positions ever could. By staying focused, calm and determined, he had done what mattered most. And though he didn't yet know it, the events of this day were only beginning to reveal just how far-reaching the impact of his actions would be. For now, he remained alert, keeping an eye on the storm and the people around him. Every small decision, every careful movement mattered. And in that moment he knew that courage wasn't measured by what others saw, but by what one chose to do when the stakes were highest. The storm outside showed no signs of slowing down. Rain poured in sheets and the wind shrieked like a wild animal, bending trees until they threatened to snap. The driver could feel the tension in the shelter. People shifted nervously, some clutching each other, others scanning the sky through small windows, hoping for any sign that the tornado was moving away. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with fear, but also a fragile hope. The driver stayed calm as he always did, knowing that his attitude could help keep others from panicking. He checked on the family he had rescued, seeing how they clung to each other. The children's eyes were wide with fear, but the presence of their parents and the steady driver reassured them. The father spoke softly to his children, telling them stories to distract from the storm. The mother whispered words of comfort, trying to make the small space feel safe. Even so, the children flinched at each loud crash of thunder or sudden gust of wind. The driver's attention then turned to the calm passenger, who had been quietly observing everything. Unlike the others, this passenger seemed composed, almost as if the storm held no real fear for them. They stood near the corner of the shelter, occasionally glancing at the others, silently encouraging them to stay calm. There was a sense of authority in their presence that the driver felt, though he didn't know the significance of it yet. He simply appreciated that their calmness helped steady the group. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the shelter. Part of the roof groaned under the weight of the wind, and water leaked in from a corner. Near the back wall, panic threatened to rise among the people, but the driver immediately moved to reassure them. "Stay calm. It's okay. We're all safe here. Just step away from the wet spots," he said, his voice steady and commanding. The mother quickly moved her children to a dry corner, and the father followed, holding their hands tightly. Other people in the shelter looked at the driver, some nodding, silently thanking him for his composure. Moments like these were a test, not of skill alone, but of patience, calmness, and the ability to reassure others in the midst of chaos. Outside, the tornado's roar grew louder. The ground seemed to tremble with the force of the wind. Trees cracked and branches flew past, slamming into fences, cars, and anything else in their path. The driver peered out a window cautiously. He could see the storm's full power now, debris swirling violently in the air, rain hitting the ground in sheets, and the darkness of the sky almost overwhelming. He knew they could not stay in the shelter forever. The building was sturdy, but he could sense that the storm might intensify even further. Some structural damage had already appeared, and it was better to move to a more secure location if possible. He looked at the calm passenger, who met his gaze with a nod, silently agreeing that action would soon be necessary. Turning back to the group, the driver spoke gently but firmly. "We need to move to a safer location. There is a reinforced community building a little farther down the road. It's built to withstand storms like this. We'll go together carefully." The father's eyes widened slightly. "Do you think we can make it?" "The storm is getting worse." The driver smiled reassuringly. "Yes, but we must stay calm and work together. Step carefully, hold hands, and trust me." The mother nodded, keeping her children close. "We're ready," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. They prepared to leave, moving slowly and deliberately. The driver helped everyone out of the shelter, guiding them through puddles and slippery mud. The wind tried to push them off balance, but he kept a steady hand on each person as they walked. The children clutched their parents' hands tightly, trusting completely in the driver's guidance. As they moved toward the car, the driver scanned the surroundings carefully. The tornado's fury had moved slightly, but the debris on the road made every step dangerous. Fallen branches, uprooted signs, and pieces of metal littered the path. He led the family around each obstacle, teaching them to step carefully and stay close. When they reached the vehicle, the driver helped them inside quickly. "Keep your seatbelts on," he instructed. "Hold on tight. We're going to drive slowly but steadily. Stay calm and we'll make it." The calm passenger settled into their seat, adjusting slightly but remaining composed. Their demeanor had a quiet effect on the others, and the family clutched each other without panic. The father glanced at the driver. "I don't know how you do this," he said quietly. "I would have been frozen with fear." The driver smiled faintly. "Experience teaches you to focus on what you can control, not what you can't. And right now, I can control getting all of you to safety." He started the car, moving carefully along the flooded, debris-strewn road. Each turn was deliberate, each movement cautious. The wind buffeted the vehicle, rocking it slightly, but he held the wheel firmly, adjusting continuously to keep everyone safe. Water splashed over the tires as they drove through small streams formed by the rain, and loose debris slammed against the car, rattling the doors and windows. Inside, the family held tightly to each other. The children's fear was evident, but the driver's calm voice offered reassurance. "We're doing fine. Just a little farther. You're safe with me." The mother squeezed her child's hand and whispered, "See? He knows what he's doing." The father nodded, silently grateful for the driver's skill and courage. Suddenly, a tree trunk had fallen across part of the road ahead. The driver's eyes widened slightly. It was too big to drive over safely. He stopped the car, assessing the situation. The calm passenger spoke up. "There's a small path to the left. It might be muddy, but it could work." The driver nodded. "Good eye. We'll take that path. Everyone stay close and stay seated. Don't panic." He carefully navigated the car onto the narrow path. Mud squelched beneath the tires and the wind continued to push against them. The children held their breath, and the parents whispered words of encouragement to them. The car moved slowly, each inch a careful balance between safety and risk. For several tense minutes, they made their way along the path. Branches scraped against the sides of the car, and occasional flashes of lightning lit the terrifying scene outside. Rain poured over the windshield in sheets, making it nearly impossible to see. The driver relied on instincts and experience, guiding the vehicle steadily. Finally, the path opened onto a clearer road, one that led directly to the reinforced building the driver had spotted earlier. Relief washed over him and the passengers. "Almost there," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Just a little farther and we'll be safe." The vehicle rolled to a stop near the building. The driver quickly helped everyone out, guiding them through the last stretch of mud and debris. The wind still pushed against them, but the structure ahead promised safety. People inside the shelter welcomed them, helping them inside and offering towels and dry blankets. Inside the reinforced building, the group finally allowed themselves to relax. The children clung to their parents, still shaken but safe. The driver glanced at the calm passenger, who smiled faintly, acknowledging the effort and courage it had taken to get there. The father looked at the driver with deep gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved our lives," he said quietly. The driver shook his head. "No need for thanks. I did what anyone would do in my place." The mother nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "But you stayed calm when the rest of us were terrified. That's more than anyone could ask for." The calm passenger stepped closer to the driver. "You didn't just save us from the storm," they said softly. "You gave us courage when we needed it most. That's something rare." The driver felt a mix of pride and humility. He had done what was necessary, but he had not sought recognition. Moments like these were not about fame. They were about human connection, about helping people when they had no one else to rely on. Outside, the storm began to subside slowly. The tornado had moved on, leaving behind a trail of damage but sparing lives. Inside the reinforced building, people shared stories of what they had witnessed, reflecting on the power of nature and the fragility of life. The driver, however, remained focused on the family and the calm passenger. He had guided them through the worst of the storm, but he didn't yet know the true significance of the passenger who had stayed composed throughout the ordeal. Their presence hinted at something important, something beyond what he could see at the moment. For now, everyone was safe. The storm had tested their courage, patience, and trust, and in the quiet aftermath, the driver realized that bravery was not about being fearless. It was about taking action despite fear, staying calm when others panic, and putting the safety of others above oneself. And in this moment, as the rain slowed and the wind softened, he understood that his actions had made a difference far greater than he could have imagined, but he had no idea just how far-reaching that difference would be. After what felt like hours, the group finally reached the reinforced building. It was a sturdy structure, built to withstand the harshest storms, and just seeing it brought a wave of relief. The rain was still pouring outside, and gusts of wind rattled the windows, but inside the atmosphere was calmer. The driver guided the family and the calm passenger through the entrance, helping them step over small puddles and slippery mud at the doorway. People inside the shelter looked up as they arrived, some with curious expressions, others with genuine concern. A few offered blankets and towels, helping the children dry off and regain warmth. The driver made sure the family was settled in a safe corner, keeping them close to the walls where the structure seemed strongest. He took a moment to breathe, finally allowing himself a small sense of accomplishment. They had made it through the worst of the storm together. The children clung to their parents, still shaken but gradually starting to relax. The mother whispered softly, encouraging them to take deep breaths and calm their racing hearts. The father held them close, speaking gently and reassuringly, reminding them that they were safe now. The driver watched quietly, proud of how they were managing despite the ordeal they had just endured. The calm passenger approached the driver, their eyes reflecting a quiet admiration. "You handled that incredibly well," they said sincerely. "Not many people could have guided us through all of that without panic." The driver shook his head slightly. "I didn't do anything special. I just tried to keep everyone safe. That's all that matters." The passenger smiled faintly. "It matters more than you think. You gave us courage when we had none. You made us trust that we could survive." The driver looked away, humbled. He wasn't used to praise. His life had always been about helping people quietly, without expectation of recognition. Yet, in that moment, he felt a warmth that went beyond simple gratitude. It was the acknowledgement of what it truly meant to act selflessly in a time of crisis. Inside the shelter, people were slowly beginning to talk. Conversations emerged about what had happened outside, about the power of the tornado, and about the destruction left in its path. Some shared stories of near misses, others spoke of property damage, and a few quietly expressed relief that everyone in their group had made it safely. The driver listened quietly, his mind still half on the storm outside. Even though they were safe for the moment, he knew storms could change quickly, and being prepared was never a bad thing. The family he had rescued gathered near a corner, drying off and trying to regain their composure. The children's fear had not entirely disappeared, but their parents' reassurance and the driver's calm presence had given them a sense of safety. The father glanced at the driver, eyes filled with gratitude. "I can't thank you enough. We wouldn't have made it without you." The driver simply nodded. "I just did what anyone should do. You were lucky and we stayed focused. That's all?" The mother stepped forward, her eyes wet but her voice steady. "You stayed calm when the rest of us were terrified. That's something special. It's not just about driving a car. It's about keeping everyone together, keeping hope alive." The driver smiled faintly, feeling both pride and humility. He had always believed that courage wasn't about recognition, and now he realized that sometimes the acknowledgement of others could be as powerful as any heroic act itself. The calm passenger remained quiet for a moment, observing the interactions. Then they spoke again, this time addressing the group as a whole. "We are fortunate," they said. "Fortunate that we had someone willing to take action. That kind of courage saves lives, and it reminds us all how important it is to help one another." The room seemed to still for a moment, everyone absorbing the weight of those words. It was a simple truth, but one that had become profoundly real in the past few hours. The storm outside had tested not just the driver's skill, but everyone's ability to remain calm, to trust, and to act responsibly. As the rain began to ease slightly, the driver looked at the calm passenger more closely. Something about them seemed familiar in a way he couldn't place. They had remained composed throughout the storm, their words deliberate, their presence reassuring. There was an air of quiet authority around them, but he didn't know why it felt significant. Meanwhile, the family started to recover their spirits. The father suggested small games to distract the children from the storm outside, while the mother encouraged them to draw pictures or talk quietly to pass the time. The driver sat nearby watching them interact, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction that they were safe, and beginning to heal from the fear they had experienced. A few minutes later, someone from the shelter approached the driver. "That was a dangerous storm," they said. "I saw what was happening outside. You really saved those people." The driver shook his head. "I just did what I thought was right. It wasn't about saving anyone famous or important. It was about keeping people alive." The person nodded, impressed. Still, not many people would have stopped, especially with the tornado approaching. "You acted without hesitation." The driver felt a quiet smile. He had always believed that helping someone in need was the only choice that made sense. Fame or recognition never mattered. Today had proven that courage and quick thinking could make all the difference, even if the people helped never revealed who they truly were. As the storm outside began to subside further, the calm passenger finally broke the silence. "I should probably tell you something," they said quietly, glancing at the driver. "You saved more than just a family today. You saved someone someone whose safety matters a lot." The driver looked at them, puzzled. "What do you mean?" The passenger smiled faintly. "I'm a U.S. Senator. I rarely face storms like this, but today your actions kept all of us alive. I want you to understand how significant that is, even though you didn't know it at the time." The driver blinked, momentarily speechless. For a moment he didn't know what to say. His mind replayed the events, the careful maneuvers, the reassurance, the calm presence he had maintained throughout the storm, and suddenly it hit him that the person he had helped was not just an ordinary passenger. They were someone with immense responsibility, someone whose safety was crucial on a national scale. But as the initial shock faded, he felt no pride in a self-serving way. Instead, there was a profound sense of humility. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I was just trying to help. I didn't think about who you were. I just wanted to keep everyone safe." The senator nodded. "And that's exactly why it mattered. You acted without bias, without fear of recognition. You did what was right, and that saved all of us. That's true courage." The driver looked at the family he had rescued, now quietly settling into a safer space, and then back at the senator. He realized that the importance of his actions was not in the titles or status of the people he had saved. It was in the fact that he had acted with compassion, focus, and bravery when it mattered most. For the next few minutes, the group shared small stories and reflections. The driver listened as the family expressed their gratitude, their voices warm and heartfelt. The senator spoke quietly about the storm and how rare it was to encounter someone so selfless in a moment of crisis. Everyone in the shelter seemed to absorb the lesson that courage and kindness often mattered far more than power or recognition. The driver finally allowed himself a deep breath. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he had done everything he could. The storm outside had tested everyone's endurance and bravery, but inside the reinforced building, A sense of calm and safety had been restored. People had survived, grown closer, and learned about the strength of human compassion. As the rain slowed and the wind softened, the driver reflected on the day's events. He had acted without hesitation, kept his focus, and guided others to safety, and in doing so he had unknowingly impacted lives in ways he could not have imagined. He felt that even without recognition, even without knowing who he had saved, the act itself had been its own reward. The senator approached him once more. "You should know that what you did today will be remembered," they said softly. "Not just by me, but by everyone who survived because of your courage. You may not see it now, but your actions made a difference that goes beyond this moment." The driver simply nodded, humbled. "I just did what anyone should do. Today it was my turn to help." The family hugged each other tightly, their children now smiling faintly, feeling safe for the first time since the storm began. The driver watched them, his heart swelling with quiet satisfaction. Courage was not about titles or recognition. It was about action, focus, and selflessness. And today, he had lived that truth fully. The storm outside had tested everyone, but inside the reinforced building, a sense of hope, safety, and gratitude now filled the space. And though the driver had saved lives without knowing it, the knowledge that one of those lives belonged to a U.S. senator added a quiet weight to the memory, proof that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things when they acted with courage and compassion. The storm had finally passed. Outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, and the wind no longer howled through the trees. The sky was a dull gray, but there was a sense of calm after the chaos. The reinforced building where the group had taken shelter seemed even safer now, like a small island of security in the aftermath of nature's fury. People were beginning to move around, checking on each other, offering blankets, food, and words of reassurance. The driver stood quietly, observing the scene, his body still tense from hours of focus and action, but his mind feeling lighter than it had all day. The family he had rescued was slowly regaining a sense of normalcy. The children, once wide-eyed with fear, now smiled faintly as they played with each other near the corner of the room. The father offered small jokes and light-hearted encouragement, trying to bring laughter into the tense space. The mother's soft words of comfort helped ground the children, showing them that even after fear, safety could be restored. The driver felt a quiet warmth in his chest watching them. Their recovery, their smiles, their simple gratitude. It reminded him why he had acted without hesitation, without fear, without thinking about recognition. The calm passenger, who had revealed their identity as a U.S. senator, stood nearby, quietly observing. Their demeanor had remained composed through the storm, offering subtle reassurance to the group and helping steady others without saying much. Now they approached the driver with a small smile, their eyes reflecting sincere admiration. "What you did today was remarkable," they said softly. "Not many people would have acted so selflessly, with such calm in the middle of a dangerous storm." The driver shook his head, brushing off the compliment. "I didn't do anything special. I just tried to keep everyone safe. That's all that matters." The senator's expression softened, but that's exactly what makes it special. Courage doesn't always wear a uniform or stand on a stage. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unseen. Today, you saved lives because you acted without hesitation, without thinking about yourself. That's real heroism. The driver felt a strange mixture of humility and pride. He had never sought recognition, but hearing someone acknowledge the